Tonight, new microchip cards could let thieves steal millions of dollars. Microsoft and Dropbox have banded together to win cloud storage. And why is Uber recruiting 50,000 veterans as drivers? Tech News Tonight is next.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Tonight, episode 208 for Tuesday, November 4th, 2014. This episode is brought to you by NatureBox. NatureBox ships great tasting snacks right to your door. Start snacking smarter with wholesome, delicious treats like sriracha rice crackers. To get your complimentary NatureBox sampler, visit naturebox.com/twit. That's naturebox.com/twit. Oh, hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Lane, and let's get right into the tech feed. Researchers at Newcastle University over in the UK have announced a critical flaw in the microchip card system that many US banks and retailers are replacing magnetic stripe credit cards and debit cards with by October of next year. That was actually a deadline imposed by Visa. Specifically, the card system developed by Visa for use in the UK fails to recognize transactions made in non-UK foreign currencies and can be tricked into approving transactions up to $999,999.99, which is pretty bad for most of us. Because the cards allow for contactless transactions, meaning you don't actually have to swipe a card or touch it to anything, a thief carrying a card reader designed to read a card that's stored in a wallet or a purse could make transactions without the victim ever removing their card. Martin Ems, the lead researcher of the project that uncovered the flaw, explains, quote, with just a mobile phone, we created a point-of-sale terminal that could read a card through a wallet. All of the checks are carried out on the card rather than the terminal. So at the point of transaction, there's nothing to raise suspicions. By presetting the amount you want to transfer, you can bump your mobile, he means phone, against someone's pocket or swipe your phone over a wallet left on a table and approve a transaction. So chipped cards, which are also known as EMV cards, are being rolled out in the U.S. in the wake of recent large-scale card breaches. Think the Target card breach, for example. The EMV system in the UK does limit the maximum value for a contactless transaction to £20 sterling and then requires a PIN for anything more than that. But the researchers found that foreign currency transactions don't need PINs, and they plan to present their findings this week at a ACM, a conference on computer and communication security in Arizona. Let's do that, before next October when we're all using these cards. Amazon announced today that Amazon Prime subscribers will now receive unlimited cloud storage for their photo backups. Any images that are already uploaded won't count against these cloud storage limits. Previously, only Fire Phone owners have had the benefit of unlimited photo storage. So, in other words, not that many people. Amazon has named this perk Prime Photos. They're uploaded to the cloud. They're accessible across not just iOS or Android, but also the web and Amazon Fire devices, including the Fire TV and the new Fire TV Stick, the PlayStation 4, the PS3, and then certain TVs from Samsung and LG. Now, although video backup is supported through Prime Photos, I definitely checked, and it is, only photos count as unlimited. They are in their original full-res versions, though, and it does support RAW files. All right, moving on to Dropbox and Office. Hey, you got some Dropbox in my office. Do you guys know that commercial? It wasn't very good. The surprise partnership between Microsoft and Dropbox, it was announced today, is good news if you're a Dropbox user who also uses Office across your desktop and your mobile and your web apps, because Microsoft Office will now be the standard way to edit Word, Excel, and PowerPoint files that are stored with Dropbox. This is going forward. Now, Office for iPad also has an update coming soon that will allow Dropbox users to link their account to Word and Excel and PowerPoint iPad apps as well. So that's really convenient if you use all of those and are also an iPad user. If users on a mobile device don't have Office installed, they'll be prompted to download the apps to edit, and any changes will sync back directly to Dropbox. Microsoft is also adding the ability to share Dropbox files from within its Office apps using Dropbox's own sharing functionality. Dropbox's updated apps will be available across the mobile platforms I mentioned in the coming weeks, along with Microsoft's own Office apps. Dropbox also has committed to building a Windows Phone version of its app, which will be available in the coming months. See, they're really playing very nicely together. Tinder is moving ahead with its premium service, Tinder Plus, which is a paid version of the dating app that brings extra features to its users, such as undo, which would let somebody go back to the person that they accidentally just swiped left on, meaning go away, I don't like you. So, that happens. I also know about that. And Passport, which lets people search outside their geographic region. Currently, the way Tinder works is it automatically searches within a certain radius, a geographic radius. And then as the user, you can decide how big you want that radius to be, 5 miles, 20 miles, that sort of thing. With Tinder Plus, users would be able to search worldwide. So I guess good for somebody who knows they'll be traveling to a distant far land and wants to have some new friends. Tinder's new paid version will roll out to a few select countries, not in the U.S., notably, but the UK, Brazil, and Germany, with about 40% of the user base in each of those markets even gaining access to it. The company also says it'll test a different number of price points, 99 cents, $4.99, $9.99, maybe even $19.99 in some markets, to see what fits and what people pay for. In other Tinder news, its parent company, IAC, has demoted CEO Sean Rad, who will step down but will remain as president and join the board of directors. This is according to a Forbes report. Rad is one of Tinder's founders as well. He holds about 10% of the company's value, which is a lot of money. It's about 10 digits, at least at this point. It isn't known if Rad's change in status is at all related to a lawsuit that was settled out of court earlier this year that involved alleged sexual harassment from co-founder Justin Mateen towards former girlfriend and other co-founder Whitney Wolf, and possible wrongful termination. Xiaomi announced on its official Weibo account today that it plans to invest $1 billion in online video content to support its smart television ecosystem. Xiaomi's smart TVs first launched back in September of last year and are part of the company's overall plan to create a hardware ecosystem around MIUI, which is its custom Android skin. It's spelled MIUI, which syncs between Xiaomi's smartphones and tablets and TVs and smart Wi-Fi routers. The company's business model is to sell hardware at cost, keeping prices down for consumers. So creating software and online content like online video is pretty important if it wants to generate revenue. According to digital TV research, China is now the world's largest smart TV and over-the-top TV content, with 20 million to 30 million TV sets sold each year. Alibaba's first quarterly earnings report since its $25 billion IPO on the New York Stock Exchange back in September is sort of a mixed bag. It beat analysts' expectations, but missed its profit forecast. The company reported earnings per share of 45 cents on revenue of $2.74 billion for the quarter, which is a 54% increase, but its net income missed expectations, falling 38.6% year over year to $494 million, which is well below the $1.17 billion that analysts had predicted. Alibaba's mobile revenue grew a ton, though, 1,020%. to $606 million, up from $54 million just a year ago. Earnings forecast for the quarter through December should be boosted by something called Singles Day. I had never heard about this before. It's a shopping event that happens on November 11th that's promoted by retail companies online for single people to buy something for themselves. Last year's Singles Day scored Alibaba about $5.8 billion in transactions. The Alibaba Group says it will expand the scope of this year's event to cross-border retail in response to higher demand among Chinese shoppers for imported goods. Learn something new every day. Here's what else we learned. Oculus VR CEO Brandon Iribe announced on stage at the Web Summit 2014 that's taking place in Dublin this week that a consumer version of the company's Rift VR headset, the Crescent Bay, is close and largely finalized for a consumer product. Iribe said, "We're all hungry for it to happen. We're getting very close. It's months, not years away, but many months." Not years, many months, 11 months? Iribe says keyboards and mice and gamepads aren't decent input devices yet, and neither is gesture control at this point, although the company did acquire Carbon Design, the designers of the Xbox 360 controller, back in March. Also, Facebook bought Oculus back in March, and since then, the company has grown from 75 people to over 200 and now operates a separate R&D division. Coming up a little later in the show, a more ethnically diverse landscape for your emoji keyboard. Yes, I'm serious. And after the break, we'll chat with The Verge's Chris Ziegler about Uber's scaling plan that includes military veterans. What are they doing this time? First, let's take a moment to thank NatureBox for sponsoring this episode of TN2. Right now, NatureBox is giving you, hungry person, hungry people in an office, hungry person at home, whoever you are, you can get a complimentary trial box of their most popular snacks and just pay $2 for shipping. A whole box of great snacks, $2 for shipping. That is a great, great deal. You don't want to eat like garbage. That's the whole point of Nature Box. You have a candy bar, your blood sugar spikes, then you have a big dip, and then, you're a nightmare, right? Potato chips are great, they're greasy, they're not good for you. You want wholesome snacks, and you can find them at naturebox.com. Hundreds of them, in fact. Some are sweet, some are savory. You've got your dietary restrictions taken care of. NatureBox snacks don't have artificial flavors or sweeteners or trans fat, never any high fructose corn syrup. It's terrible for you. Maybe you're gluten-free. NatureBox has you covered. In the afternoon, you get hungry, you want to grab some apple cinnamon crave from NatureBox or those cranberry macaroon granola little clusters. God, I love those. They're really good. NatureBox is delicious and it's good for you. Start your trial today and get a complimentary sampler box at naturebox.com/twit. Stay full, stay strong, start snacking smarter. I need some NatureBox right now. Go to naturebox.com/twit, and thanks to NatureBox for the support of Tech News Tonight. Joining us now is Chris Ziegler, deputy editor over at The Verge. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, lovely for you to be able to join us today. Okay, so The Verge posted an article today, as did some other outlets, that Uber is recruiting 50,000 military veterans as drivers. Now, my first reaction is, as much as I like the Uber service, and in San Francisco where I live, I use it constantly, scaling has not always been their strongest suit. The more they scale, the more I have the possibility that one of my drivers won't really know where he or she is going, that sort of thing. So 50,000 veterans, that's a lot of people. What's the plan?
Well, what's interesting to note is that Uber claims, we mentioned this in our story, that they actually add 50,000 drivers a month. So over a period of many months, adding 50,000 veterans isn't necessarily a huge scale for them. But really what this boils down to is that this is a very concentrated effort on their part. They're recruiting retired generals to help promote it. And while it is on the surface a great thing that unemployed veterans have the opportunity to get gainful employment, the concern is that a lot of these folks who do have trouble finding jobs when they come back from active military service are frankly overqualified for this work. And when you add in costs like gasoline and car maintenance, the numbers that Uber promises for what you're going to make over, say, the period of a month or a year, those numbers really don't add up. And you end up basically working yourself to the bone, just trying to make ends meet. And you have folks with 4-year degrees and many, many years of military service coming back and getting signed up for UberX, and they're just not making very much money at all.
Yeah, there's also the question that's been brought up about auto loans. I mean, many drivers go out, they get themselves a nice new car, and there's a loan involved, and Uber can pretty much cut a driver off at any time, right?
That's right. Yeah, they have minimum requirements for what kind of car that you can own and drive around for their service, which is something that I've always personally wondered, because in New York I get an UberX and it's always like a really nice, either a Lincoln MKT or a brand new Camry or something that isn't 10 years old. And I always wondered how they do that. And it turns out that part of it is that they just have this minimum requirement and they cut you off if you don't meet it. And so they're feeding people into these potentially predatory loans in order to make sure that they can have the kind of car that they need to be in the service.
Do the rules need to change for veterans? I mean, obviously Uber drivers are aware of what their rights are and what the limitations are when they sign up to be partners with Uber, but should these rules be different if we're talking about military veterans who are having a hard time getting back in the workforce and, as you said, overqualified, or should everybody be treated the same?
It's a really tough question. I think that that ultimately the only way to make this work at scale is to increase the cost of an UberX, and yet they're in the midst of these really aggressive price cuts in cities like New York and Sacramento, we mentioned in the piece, and elsewhere, where they're trying to undercut local cab services and really explode the service, the service, which they're succeeding at doing, but at the cost of being able to pay these drivers reasonable rates. So, it's bending right now. Eventually something has to break. The question is, what? Will it be that rates go up? Will it be that drivers finally say, well, screw this, I'm going to go do something else? I don't know what the answer is.
Even if a veteran is overqualified, might be the job that they'd want. It, doesn't necessarily matter. You might say, there might be the argument, well, let the drivers decide if this is the right job for them. Are there any outspoken veterans that are speaking up one way or another about this program?
Well, so that's very interesting. The problem is that Uber is very aggressive about keeping a lid on unhappy drivers.
Sure.
So basically, folks aren't speaking out, or when they do, it has to be anonymously, because they won't hesitate to kick people out for speaking out. So it's very well contained. It's a well-oiled machine. You have to give them a lot of credit for expanding as rapidly as they have. The only question is, are people being fed into this system where they're really not making enough to make ends meet for lack of a better option? And it's a very, very tough question to answer, because these veterans may not have other opportunities that make more sense for them.
Chris Ziegler writes for The Verge, deputy editor over at The Verge. Thanks for joining us, Chris, and remind folks where they can keep up with your work.
Check out theverge.com, of course. Hopefully you're already reading it, but if you're not, please do. And we are Verge on Twitter, and we are also on Facebook and Snapchat and Vine. We're very aggressive with social media, so just please follow us everywhere. Excellent.
Thanks so much for joining us, Chris.
Thank you.
It is a good publication. He's not lying. I read it every day. All right, finally, the Unicode Consortium. These are the people that you can thank for your friends who really love emoji texting. I'm one of those people. Not everybody likes it. Well, the consortium has released a technical report describing a new method for handling multi-ethnic groups in emoji. Now, they've previously been criticized for not really having any multi-ethnic groups in emoji. Previous guidelines have in fact stated that emoji people be, quote, as neutral as possible regarding race, ethnicity, and gender. Now, Unicode 8.0 proposes to introduce a skin tone modifier, which could be added to certain emoji that would allow you as a user to send an emoji using any sort of skin tone that you desire. And that includes emoji couples that might have different skin tones. So really, quite a bit of customization on your part if this goes through. And if it does, it's planned for release in the middle of next year. And that is it for this edition of Tech News Tonight. Thanks for joining us. You can subscribe to the show, and I suggest you do if you enjoy it. twit.tv/TN2 is the way to subscribe to either our audio or video feeds. You can also watch live every day at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you're watching us live, you already know that, but it's always nice to have you. You can write us at TN2 at twit.tv with feedback. And our morning news program, Tech News Today, rolls out at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. I'm Sarah Lan, and I'll see you here on TN2 tomorrow as well. Thanks for watching.
Bandwidth for Tech News Tonight is brought to you by CashFly.com.